be asked to return to your place of residence. But furthermore, this is also a road safety initiative, but it's all set against the context of the health of the nation, all of us playing our part, all of us acting together to defeat COVID-19. Also then today we've received the regulations. They've been signed by the Minister, but again our approach is not changing. We are a community-based policing service. We're applying the same tact as we have all week. It'll be one of informing people, engaging with them, persuading them to comply with the regulations, and enforcement is only at the very end of non-compliance by an individual. I think we hope to see, and we think we will see, very, very few requirements to actually use the regulations in a purely enforcement sense, and we still will depend upon the vast majority of society acting in compliance with the health advice, and these regulations are there to back that up. Thank you.
Can I just ask to start off, when will these new enforcement powers be in effect from, and when will they expire?
Well, the regulations now are in effect, and they last until, at the moment, until Sunday evening, 12 midnight. We have finalised our policy for the organisation, and that will be distributed today, in fact very shortly, and so all the members from Garda Síochána will be given guidance as to how they should act at the various checkpoints, and also in respect of enforcement. But enforcement is at the very far end of engagement with people, asking for their cooperation, and really us pursuing the policy that we've applied so far.
You said that mostly there has been good cooperation with these principles, but some officers around the country have said that people have been flouting them. They've received some antagonism on the front lines for trying to enforce these. Is that something you're aware of? Well,
yes indeed. Well, what we're seeing is that the discipline required to live by this medical advice is starting to slip a little. We're seeing things like people exercising more than 2 kilometres from their home. We're seeing people moving for non-essential reasons, and we're also seeing house parties. So these are areas where we feel we may need the regulations in terms of enforcing the restrictions that are in place at the moment. Well, sorry, Paul, I missed this.
Do you expect there will be conflict because they won't be happy about these invitations? 2 kilometres is a very small area.
Well, I don't expect conflict, no, because the vast majority have been in compliance with this, and in fact actually there's a degree of societal pressure about being in compliance as well, but regrettably there's a small minority, and perhaps that's an increasing number, who are starting in effect to breach the advice, and that then brings them in conflict ultimately then with the regulations which are now in force. But it's our position as a community police service to continue on engaging with people and encouraging them then to live within the restrictions and the advice that are in place at the moment. So we don't see this as a situation of conflict. This is a situation of us all working together and acting together to minimise the spread of COVID-19.
Deliver Easter eggs to grannies and granddads or older people who are cocooning?
Well, regrettably not. The regulations would not include that as an essential journey. An essential journey may be going to visit a family member where there's a critical need, but regrettably delivering Easter eggs is not a critical need, and people should realise that it's not an essential journey. And if you're stopped, you will be turned back and asked to return to your place of residence.
And does it apply to cyclists as well? Because cyclists usually cycle more than 2 kilometres.
Well, and we are seeing some element of cyclists travelling further than 2 kilometres from their place of residence. And again, we say that's to stop. You exercise within 2 kilometres of your home only.
Commissioner, scenario too. You're saying that if people, we've had a lot of talk about people going to holiday homes, and if they're stopped on the road, they'll be asked to return. If that family makes it to their holiday home there and they're out walking and are stopped by a guard, will they be asked to pack up and return, or will they be left in situ?
Well, the regulations make it clear that your home is a place of residence, but if you have temporary residence somewhere else, that also is a place of residence. So if you're at your holiday home now, you need to stay there. That is now your place of residence. If you're thinking of travelling there, don't. That is not an essential journey. So if you have travelled for your holiday home now, that's where you are. That's your place of residence, and that'll be regarded as where you should be. But I can reiterate, a journey to a holiday home is not an essential journey. We will be able to turn you back. Well, we will provide an instruction, but you have to look at the manner in which we've conducted the operation now over the last 2 weeks. It has been an operation which has been run with good sense of tact and diplomacy and common sense. That doesn't change this morning because we have the regulations in place. We'll provide further guidance, but it is based upon the principles of engaging people in the first place before we go anywhere near enforcement. But as always, we'll be very careful, make sure that we're proportionate and apply the law in a proportionate and necessary sense, particularly in respect of these powers, because these powers are powers which are extraordinary in these extraordinary circumstances that we find ourselves in.
People may have concerns that we are some terrorists that
Well, we want to entirely avoid any scenario of overreach. We want to be proportionate in what we do. This is a graduated response. Everyone will be given the opportunity to comply. If they're outside the regulations, they'll be given the opportunity to comply and go on their day's business. They may be asked to return home, they may be asked to change their behaviour, whatever that is, but people will be given the opportunity to comply before we go anywhere near enforcement powers.
Are all the motorways going to be like this? Are you going to be funneling traffic into checkpoints on all the motorways? Are there going to be patrols and checkpoints at duty spots and beaches?
There will be checkpoints throughout the country, over 50 checkpoints throughout the country. There won't be many on the motorways, but the motorways are obviously part of arterial routes and an area that we will have to keep observation on and a check on. But this is a big operation which spreads right across the country, and it's in place to deter travel which is not essential.
Commissioner, how exactly do you arrest people and detain them in a time when we're meant to be social distancing, just to ensure the safety of your officers and the people that they're engaging with who aren't complying?
Well, arrest is an essential part of our work. It has to carry on. You're obviously then very obviously within the 2 metre zone when you're dealing with an individual, but it's dealt with quickly. We make sure then that our vehicles are kept clean, that our personnel and indeed those that we've access to have access to hand cleaning gel. But we've also then introduced today then these spit guards in case individuals, as has happened regrettably over the last 2 weeks, individuals spit at members of Garda Commissioner or indeed at the public.
That's something you're particularly concerned of. We have had multiple reports of people doing that in the last while. Is that something which, I mean, how will these be rolled out in terms of two people? Is that going to be mandatory now that once you're arrested for breaching these, it will be given these, or is it in specific circumstances?
Well, it's just in the specific circumstances where somebody's creating a credible threat from spitting either at members of the public or members of Garda Commissioner that they would be used. Again, all of this has been done in terms of being proportionality and the proportionality of our response. We've introduced, in effect, these spit guards for the duration of this crisis, and they will be used very sparingly. We don't envisage many situations where they're needed, but they are a further option in terms of personal protective equipment. Well, I think if somebody sees something which is very blatant, then they should let us know, and so we can respond to it, check it out, and deal with the situation and move it on. Really, the regulations are backing up all the advice and restrictions that have been, or the advice that's been provided by the CMO, and we run at work, act with the rest of society in making sure that advice is followed through on. So if people see something which is of concern to them, which they think is something where obviously there's a risk of the illness being spread on, a further vector for the illness, then they should let us know so that we can act, arrive there, deal with the situation, and hopefully then resolve it.
How many are they allowed?
Well, the regulations really only talk about you being within your household. The regulations are designed that your contact, unless you're involved in some form of essential service, is your household. And so when you're exercising, you can only exercise with people from your household, for example.
So you can't sit in the park for an hour or two and just watch the birds or whatever?
Well, we have seen that, and I think the concern that we have is where people start to mass together. If somebody's sitting individually and they're away from everyone else, yes, watch the birds and all of that there if you want, but the whole thing is you shouldn't be congregating in bigger groups. You shouldn't be congregating with people outside your household.
Just a point of clarity, just in terms of issuing fines, are people going to be arrested or on-spot fines? Is that the first protocol?
Well, there's no on-the-spot fines, and in fact, the first port of call wouldn't be arrest. The first port of call would be taken on individuals' name and address.
Thanks indeed. We leave it there. Thank you.
John, do you have a release by any chance? I don't know what I have to do with that. Thank you very much. Thanks, Commissioner, for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, grand stuff. Thank you.
Happy.